I just wanted to know from your experience with the families that you encounter, do you think they've found any peace? Do you think they ever will find any peace? And how do they cope from your vantage point?
You know, we never use the word closure. I think what we try and do, and I think what we hope that the work of Recovering Remains does, is basically move a family from the place where they've been stuck for 20 or 30 years to a different place. And I can tell you that sometimes that place is not necessarily easier. Sometimes our work uncovers very painful information. I think in 3 or 4 cases, we have uncovered information that indicated that it was a family member that called the security police, for example. And these, you know, we have a stance of not censoring information that is uncovered. Families have often, over the 20 or 30 years that they've been thinking about the missing person, have developed a theory or a fantasy or a belief about what happened to that person. And now we come with different information. Just recently, we met with a family in Soweto whose brother disappeared in exile. And we found a document from the security police which indicated that he'd actually been arrested in Soweto. And we gave it to them. And before that, they were completely composed and calm and at ease, and, you know, even talking and laughing and joking. You know, they've been working with the disappearance of their family member for so long that it's easy for them to talk about it now. And we presented this document and we spoke about what we had found. And the older brother, who's a very jocular, easygoing, lovely man, burst into tears at this new information. And he could not accept it. He said, no, he was never detained, could not accept it. So the journey to getting new information is actually can be a really painful one. And it's not necessarily this kind of pathway to peace, the simple pathway to peace. I think that we've learned over the years to try to be sensitive to the level of information that families indicate they're ready to receive. So sometimes if families don't ask a lot of questions, we won't offer a lot of forensic detail, for example, about the state of the body or the information about death. We try and listen to, do they ask a lot of questions about how the person died? If they don't, we don't necessarily put it to them. We try and take the lead. But sometimes we get it wrong, as we did with this brother in Soweto, and it's very difficult. So no, we don't talk about closure, and I think even sometimes the answers that we get are not the ones that the families wanted. Yeah. So, but again, there are very many outcomes that are really wonderful. And where the families are able to conduct burials. But again, that's probably a minority of our cases. We will solve, unfortunately, a minority of the missing persons cases that we have on our lists. So we have tried to develop also what we call symbolic processes, symbolic reburials, where, for example, we take the family to the place of death as best as we can establish it. Perhaps we've done this in instances with the family of Johannes Sambo, for example. We took the family to where he died in custody, and we took them to the police location where his body was blown up. And we couldn't recover any parts of his remains at all. They were able to perform rituals at that site. And that was actually really meaningful. It was really powerful. And I'm probably a person that doesn't put much store in the spiritual, but I have learned to pay a lot of respect to processes that dignify the spirit of the person and allow the family to, and particularly for what we call processes of acknowledgement and recognition. I mean, one thing we've learned over the years is that it's not just about recovering the remains. It's also about recognition and acknowledgement of the family. And if we recover remains, but we don't factor in and build in processes of recognition, we sometimes are, I would say we failed. And that's a critical part of our work as well, that we've learned along the way. Yeah.
I think that provides us a quite heartbreaking, but I also think a solemn and also somewhat comforting notes to conclude this program. Madeleine, thank you so much for coming on to speak about this. It's very heavy material, and I can imagine it can be exhausting at times to talk about it. So we're very grateful that you were brave enough to do that today. And thank you to my wonderful co-host, Sean. Thank you to the guests that we had earlier, Enver Samuel and Evelyn Hrunink. A reminder that speaking of recognizing the families and speaking of acknowledgement, Murder in Paris will be screening on South African TV screens this Sunday on the 21st of March on SABC3 at 7:30 p.m. and next Sunday on the 28th of March at that same time. Please do catch it. And we're so grateful to have had all of our guests on today's program. We're grateful as always for our magnificent producer, Antoinette Engel, and to you, our lovely viewers who are always here with us. Thank you so much for joining, and we will see you again next week. Goodbye.
Bye.